coming. I thank all of those who participated this morning. We have refreshments downstairs. In about 5 minutes, we'll start our time of memories and recollections up here. And now let's ask God's blessing upon us. The blessing of the Father, the blessing of the Son, and the blessing of the Holy Spirit, today and tomorrow, and for all the tomorrows we yet may have. Amen.
It'll be another 100 years. This was a lot of work, and it was also a lot of fun. I'd only be at 151. I plan to attend the next one. I think that'll be okay. The Bicentennial Committee did or does consist of Arlene Calder, Dr. Casperson, Lloyd Hartsoff, Sharon Collins, Linda Turner, Lynn Melkoff, and myself. And on behalf of the committee, we welcome all of you here today, especially the former pastors and their family. We're delighted, absolutely delighted that you returned. This is a time for reminiscing and reflection, and we request that the pastors or their designees take 5 minutes at the most, and others, including me, take 3 minutes. I like that little stage show with a watch. I see people that you don't see. I don't need to clarify it for Phyllis. She knows where I'm headed with that. Let me clarify it for any little ones that are in here. Whether it's today at the Bicentennial, whether it's a Christmas Eve ceremony, or whether it's a normal Sunday in March or April, I look around these pews and I see people that have moved away, don't come anymore, but mostly those who have passed away. I would love to mention a couple, but that wouldn't be right. I could easily, as well as most of you, mention 50. As my father said, the saints who have gone on before. Well, I don't know about the saint part, but very good, special people nonetheless. And we are the poorer for their absence. When I was a child, I was brought to this church and had wonderful teachers like Anna Frankish, who Doug Wells and I tormented, and we apologize, Anna. I don't know about Doug, but I apologize. Choir director, who we tormented, Anna Laura Wells, and Doug heard about it, I'm sure, when he got home, and Elaine Green, our ever-trust organist. As a teen, I came here twice a month. Dorothy and Mom B wanted me here every Sunday. I didn't want to come at all, so we compromised. As a 51-year-old, this building and these people are a cornerstone of my being. 1904 saw our centennial. Kids walked to District 8 up by the parsonage. People worshipped up on the knoll, as Lloyd talked about, or in this spot. They attended Grange. They bought and sold and gossiped at the Reed Corner store, and they even went for 3 days in October to the Little World's Fair out and back. Only the church remains. It's our fervent hope that, God willing, we will see a tricentennial. At this time, I'd like Tom Witt, representing the Witt family, to come up. You can use either the podium mic or the mic down here, whichever you feel comfortable with. Oh, while Tom is getting the microphone out, Lynn Melkoff has these porcelain decorations for sale. They're $8 out in the Sunday school wing. We have several. Please stop and buy one.
Good morning. I'm working on my voice today. It's a pleasure to be here, Stephen. Thank you for for organizing this. My dad's name was Chet Witt, and my mom's name was Mary Witt. 52 years ago, they lived in that little parsonage that's down the street. They had 3 kids at the time. I wasn't one of them. I'm only 46. But my brothers' names were John, Ken, and Jim. 2 of them went on to become ordained Baptist pastors. I'm not sure how well my father pastored here. He was a very sick man in 1952. He had ulcerative colitis. And my only memory that my mom shares with me is her belief. I don't know how true it is. Perhaps a member of the congregation can verify this for me. Dad was preaching one Sunday morning up here, and being as sick and frail as he was, as a young 20-year-old man it was difficult. He fainted while giving a sermon. My mom remembers fondly going up, well, perhaps I believe probably some of the trustees got my dad out and helped for his ailment. My mom went on with the sermon and gave a sermon. She's very, very proud of that, about that story. My mom today actually is a lay pastor in a small Methodist church on the southern tier between Deposit and Hancock, New York. But this church took care of my dad. Took care of him in a time where he really needed a lot of support. The men and women, the families of this community, whom I don't know very well at all, did something which is extraordinary and very difficult in a time when you probably need a lot of leadership from your pastor, probably weren't getting it, and you took care of him. And that's a blessing to me. And it was a blessing to my family. Thank you very much.
In 1944, in May, I started Colgate-Rochester Divinity School. In late August, I came down to this church and began a student pastorate, spending weekends going into the parsonage where Mrs. Mosier was the housekeeper and took care of meals for each weekend that I was here. In the summer of the next year, 1945, on July 10th, I was married. I arranged with the church to allow me to come back here during my honeymoon in order to preach and have an extra week of vacation to spend on our honeymoon. On that Sunday afternoon, I had my first wedding. I could not find the names of the couple that I married, but I do remember that the bride was about a head taller than her groom. Conclusion of the ceremony, when I had said, and now I'll pronounce you husband and wife, she stepped back, threw her arms out, stepped forward with a big bear hug for all the world, saying, "I got you now." Saturday night before that Sunday, my new wife and I were in the parsonage. Mrs. Mosier had prepared supper for us. We spent the evening there. It was about time to get ready for bed. And all of a sudden there was this terrible ruckus out on the front porch. Stomping, clapping, banging of pans, noisemakers of all kinds. We thought all hell had broken loose. Mrs. Mosier said, "They're here for you. Open the door and invite them in." So we opened the door, and in came this crowd of young and old people. They were engaged in what Sometimes it's called a serenade or a hornin or a chivalry. We had no idea what was coming off. They came in, we talked with them for a while. Having not had any idea that they were coming, we were unprepared with anything to serve. And finally, one of them said, well, if we're not going to get anything to eat, we might as well go home. So back out they went. And we were left somewhat embarrassed and a little bit chagrined that we didn't know that this was coming off, and we therefore were unprepared with any treats. But I wanted to make up for it, so I brought the treats. So after this portion is over, you either may come to me or put them downstairs. And any of you who didn't get a treat that night, any of you who wish you were there, come and get a treat. Thank you.
I just thought I'd catch up on a little of our family history, and then if he has anything else to add. When we left here, we went to a church near Plains, Georgia, where Jimmy Carter lives. That's where his home is. At that time, Steve took some extra courses along the way and worked on his education, and we had agreed that when he finished, I would start the college and get my college education and everything. Well, he kept taking courses that I didn't think he was going to ever get through. So I started and went to Georgia Southwestern in Americus, Georgia, and finished there. And this is where Carter is very active in that county and everything. And then he was called to a church in Macon, Georgia, and I entered Mercer University and finished there and started teaching. And then later gradually went along and got my master's degree. And then I taught 25 years and retired from teaching. During that time, Steve served a church for 11 years, and it was unusual that pastors called to another church in the same town, but he was, and then we went to a church and served that church for 12 years, and he retired. Well, I thought that was just wonderful, and for 3 years he had just the best time playing golf and just doing things like that, and I said, well, heck, I'm not going to work and teach school and let you go to meetings and eat and play golf. So I retired early, and then we started traveling a lot. So we happened to go to Hawaii in a little time, and to Europe 2 or 3 times, and we were able to go to Ukraine, his parents' home, where they came from, and we went there several times. So we just spent lots of time doing some traveling in between times. Well, when he retired and then I retired, that was what we like to do, is lots of traveling. We even traveled with a camper with our children, and I think we've been in every state except about 4, and we've enjoyed doing that. Well, then we were asked to come and be an interim family at a small rural church. And believe it or not, they just drafted us after we were there 3 months. They had a conference, said they were going to have a conference. And I said, well, honey, I don't think they have interested in calling anybody. They haven't been anywhere. And nobody's been to the church while we were there and you were preaching. And we didn't know what was going to happen in the conference, so we just stepped out on that little front porch. Just a few minutes, the deacon said, well, come back in. And we started down the aisle, and they started clapping and said, welcome to our new pastor and wife. So they literally drafted us to that rural church that's 50 miles from Macon, Georgia. It took us about an hour to get there every Sunday morning. And he has just retired from there the second time, and we served that church 20 years. So he is retired, and he is looking for a job. He wants to do some interim or supply work. We have been to some churches, and they may be interested, I don't know. But I think really, when we go, I'm the charm that gets us called. Anyway, so our children, grown in families, and we have grown from 3 children that we had here. Richard, the middle child, did not get to come. He is an area supervisor for Frito-Lay chips and so forth like that in Albany, Georgia, where the storm is going to hit here in a day or so. But Sorrel, our baby, that was about 4 when we moved here, and Stephen, our oldest child, is here with us, and then his son, Stephen. We have 8 grandchildren, and we have 4 great-grandchildren. We are never lonesome. There's somebody coming in and out all the time. And I hope you enjoy your family as much as we've enjoyed ours. But that's just a little background, and we were just thrilled to death when we got this invitation to come, because when he retired, I said, honey, I want us to make a pilgrimage back to the churches that we serve. And we've been to 2 or 3 of our churches, and believe it or not, the letter came, well, he asked, well, what are we going to do when we get to the church in New York State? And we both said, well, we'll just go. So then we got the invitation to come here, was thrilled to death, and started making plans. In the meantime, our oldest son that's with us had a stroke, paralyzed all the way down the left side. He has worked so hard in therapy and everything else for them to give him permission to be here today. So there he is, sitting there, and I think that's a miracle. Steve and I are old, whether you believe it or not. We're old, but we're still active. And then the miracle of our son getting well enough to come fly up here with us. So we just praise the Lord.
No, I just wanted to mention a few things, and I won't take very long here. And when I was here just a short period, I had the privilege of uniting 3 couples. Kenneth Young and Carol Henry. Are they here? They're sitting right there. They were married September 29, 1956. So you can add up how long they've been married. Then Robert Lockhart and Lorraine Fleenor. Are they here? No. And then Robert Ellis and June Regal. Those are the 3 couples that I united in marriage. And were I here?
Well, half of it. He found a new Mrs. Ellis.
All right. It was one of the saddest things that happened to me while I was here. I was called by the funeral people in Canandaigua to conduct a funeral. The body was to be buried here at the cemetery. Had no relatives, nobody. He was all by himself. So the funeral people and myself conducted the service. We brought him here and buried it in this place. And that was the saddest funeral I've ever been in. Now, is Eleanor here? Elaine, I mean.
She's
Where's
also.
Elaine? I need Elaine here badly. Where is it? Elaine Green, yes. No, there she is over there. I got a letter from her, and she didn't mention a thing that I ever preached on. But she did remember a story I told. And she didn't remember the whole story, but she remembered something about the punchline. And so I thought I'd tell this story for you. The story was told about 3 little rabbits. By the name of Foot, 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 and Foot, Foot, Foot. Foot and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot were walking down the street one day, and Foot and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot saw a great big field of clover. So Foot and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot jumped over the fence, and Foot and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot ate up all that clover. And so Foot and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot went down the street, and Foot said to Foot, Foot, and Foot, 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 oh, Foot, Foot, and Foot, 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 I got a stomach ache. So little Foot died. So one day, Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot went walking down the street. Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot saw a great big field of clover, and so Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot jumped over the fence, and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot ate up all that clover, and they jumped back over the fence, and Foot, Foot, and Foot, Foot, Foot went on down the street. Foot, Foot said to Foot, 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 oh, Foot, 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 I got a stomach ache. And so Foot, Foot, Foot ran and got a doctor and said, oh, doctor, please don't let Foot, Foot die, because I already got 1 foot in the grave.
was young and first came to this church, the first privilege I had was to officiate at a young lady's wedding. Elaine Green and Bob's. And needless to say, she didn't know this, but we were in conversation with the UCC and the association and how I got licensed. And the license finally wound up at the parsonage at 2 o'clock in the afternoon so I could do the wedding in the evening. And, to make it legal. So, just wanted you to know you're legal. We have to do this all over again. And I'm not certain about Elaine, but I was so nervous I couldn't eat the whole weekend. I don't know how the bride felt. And, another piece when I walked in today, Al Henry was reminding me, I used to like to help Al do haying. And he did remind me that I fell in the pond one day and I almost became a Baptist. Almost. In thinking about that, and you have given me one image of the church, many images of the church that have carried me for many years, and one was the Federation. And in all my ministries of where I've been, you have always been in the back of my mind when I'm working with a church that's coming toward that time when they need to make a decision about the future of their life together. And I've always been able to say, is there another church in this community that you can federate with and be a strong witness for Christ? And I don't care about your denomination. That's always been a part of me. That they've always kidded me. I've not been a good representative of the UCC. Well, that's not true. But the representative with me, I care about the church first and the witness in the community. And if 2 churches, 3 churches, 5 churches can get together and be one strong church in the community, praise the Lord. That's Faye. She was telling me about her church this morning. To just quickly to say, those are the little things that stuck with us who have been pastors in your midst. And one thing I did learn with you is, like Jack Tekianiki said in his letter, you taught us to be pastors and to be people-oriented while we were here. And we didn't go off into all the books, though we had to read them and study them to learn. But we were always grounded because we came back here at night and we were here with you on the weekends and we were in the hospital, with umpteen different ones that I can remember and many that have gone before. But it always kept us grounded in our educational process. And that to me has always been my appreciation for this church. As I said before a couple of years ago, when I was here as your interim conference minister and shared sermon with you. Thank you for that gift. And sometimes we're the ones that get to speak, and we just need to know that say to you, you've been appreciated as well. And I gotta say one other thing. I was looking at my pictures out here, and I have a couple of them at home, and when I was, those of you who can remember that far back, 62 to 66, that when I was here, I had darker hair, and I had those heavy plastic glasses that you wore back then, and you looked like a doctor, and you looked like a psychiatrist, and I was. My psychiatric background tried to figure out Linda Dewey Turner all those years, and it never came to be, and so I took the glasses off and got lighter ones.
So so many memories, and recent memories compared to some of my other predecessors here. Jack spoke about being taught as a young man how to be a pastor, how to do ministry. I came here at a later stage in my life, but I needed to be re-educated and was welcomed into your midst and re-taught, I think. Having been a pastor, having been in the Army as a chaplain, having been a hospital chaplain, a counselor, I came at a point that my life was in transition, and I was welcomed into a family of Three Corners, and nurtured and loved. And it was very difficult a couple of 3 years ago when we had to leave. But I was taught by you all more about how to do ministry and how to love and how to be part of a community. So I was very much blessed, and I always felt that I took away more than I was able to give during those years. But it was a very special time. I started in the September of 2019. No, I left in 2001. 1990, thank you. And at the same time, that same month, I got a new car and a new girlfriend. I went to church and started my life anew. And I can't remember all the people we married during that time, but there were quite a number. And then I got a chance to stand on the other side of the stairs and say vows, not have others repeat them after me, and offer a special joy into my life. Donna maybe has a few words to say, but that was a very special memory. As 4 different clergy took part, and it was just a wonderful, special occasion and blessing in my life. It's a good thing that she has a background in drama and other kinds of things. When I got very sick with a bad head cold, I could not go on to it was Christmas Eve. She stepped in and followed the script, exactly, and it has been a wonderful support in many ways. All of you are much in our memories and prayers, and I got here, it felt like I hadn't been gone all that long, and seems like a long time ago as well. We're just over in Syracuse and Manlius, and it's if you get that way, you're welcome to stop by. Wonderful ministry, different kind of ministry in the VA hospital in Syracuse. My congregation is, if it's 10 people on a Sunday morning now, that's a big crowd. And no babies, none of the music of little ones, just older folks who sometimes fall asleep. I made the mistake of waking one of them up who cursed me out in the middle of the service. Not remembering where he was. But anyway, very interesting and challenging ministry there, but I appreciate it very much. All that you have meant to us and ways in which you
Well, Gertie left me 1 minute. You know, this is going to be fun because he doesn't know what I'm going to say. Yes, I have a very distinct memory of the evening that I did take over the service, and I was a little nervous and so happy that Steve was there, you know, around me and helping me. And I guess I want to say that, first of all, about my husband, that my faith in God has been strengthened by this man. And this man was born with faith. It's a natural gift. He hasn't had to work for it or fight for it. You know, just like some people are born with musical talent or artistic talent, he had it, and he's got it. And I'm very blessed by being married to this man. And of course, our wedding here was a beautiful, beautiful memory. And, you know, memories of the people here who came before us. And I remember Elaine Green's mother, Frances, and with the most beautiful smile I've ever seen in my life. And I remember Herb Frankish, and I remember Herb's hands, those large hands. They were so huge, and they were always reaching out to shake someone else's. And who else? I remember Grace Bigham's eyes. And I just have beautiful memories of Norma Kayward, who had the most beautiful gift for humor. And it's the people in this church, you know, the living as well as those who have passed away, that have stayed in my memory. And it was a beautiful experience being here. So I want to say thank you so much to all of you.
You had heard from them, and we were delighted that they did send a letter because they were at our wedding 54 years ago last week. And we were happy to have that connection. I also was in seminary at the same time with Chet Witt, and remembered him dearly and the fellowship we had there. Now, I was here just 2 short years, but I had almost retired, and this was a fun church and a wonderful congregation. You just poured your heart out to me and fed me so much love and inspiration, and I would stand up here in the pulpit, and I had pulled out some sermons from before, and once in a while the congregation would be so big, all just packed, and I'd be sitting there wondering, am I choosing the right sermon today? And once in a while, believe it or not, I would change my sermon, having seen the faces of you wonderful, beautiful people. One of my fun memories, the Mumby sort of took me under their wing, and dear blessed Dottie knew that I was partial to her raisin bran muffins. And on more than one occasion, as I was ready to come through these doors into the pulpit, she would hand me a warm raisin bran muffin. And sometimes I would have it completely eaten between that door and this door, and it stroked me for the service. And I bless you all, and it's a wonderful congregation, and it was a fun congregation. No ever-memory canvas. If anything needed to be done, you people did it. You rallied around, you raised the money. We didn't have to organize a door-to-door subscription campaign. It was a great church, and God bless you, and I'm happy that we were able to be here today.
In the presence with the Caspersons. Reverend Casperson, would you come up for a minute? I usually have a donation at the end of the year to give to the Caspersons.
Diana, I think, is downstairs helping with refreshments. This is my 3rd time pastor the church, from 72 until 80, then from 82 when Charles Osborne left until 1990 when Richard Brown came. Then Richard had to leave quickly because his main job switched from the Canandaigua VA to the Syracuse VA, and I started filling in, and that's been about 3.5 years ago. But this is our church home. More than just being pastor of the church, we attend here. We probably always will attend here, and we enjoy very much being able to be pastor and the pastor's wife, and I just hope it goes on for several more years. Thank you.
Person I'm sure it's here in spirit. We call her Aunt Ethel. Ethel Powell. She took us in. We had problems up here at the pastoral. She took us into our home. She looks after us. That's not a small task when you have 3 children and 2 grown. And she took us in. There's other memories that I can bring, but I won't even mention her.
Somebody wants to buy the ornament, they're for sale for $8 and I'll be out there at the table.
Thank you. Anyone else with a short remembrance? Oh, I see a lady that's looking to spring up.
But it's not short.
Well, it'll have to be.
Arlene is our dear friend, because Harry could repair our cars. And we discovered in our first year here that we shared the same wedding anniversary date. And we had a date on our anniversary for 3 years thereafter while we were here. And at that time, they were not members of the church or active in the church. So I just celebrate that they have been part of your life after we had become acquainted with them. And I see our youth here, our kids. Let our kids just stand up and celebrate. Please, everybody else. Yes, our kids. We grew up with you and you with us and our kids' kids. Thank you for sharing your life. Your dear friends forever and ever in Christ. Thank you.
To participate in this meeting, I want you to realize 100 years ago, my grandfather and his great-grandfather and Stella Bigham were the committee for the 100-year celebration. And Helen was on the Sesquicentennial, Linda's mom. So I want the name again to appear, so I begged, can I be there? Can I do something?
I'm sure I would be remiss if I didn't say that I went quickly down to get a cool drink after the worship service, and they have some magnificent, wonderful things prepared, so don't miss that, folks, if you have a minute. It's a gift to my soul, and I know it is to all of you who have been hearing from former pastors and spouses, demonstrating again the magnificent work of the Spirit of God as He unites people and their leadership in doing ministry that matters. And if you ever have it cross your mind, folks, those of you who have shared leadership for many years, is the whole thing worth it, or has some of the struggles and challenges and some of the difficulties that are part of the reality of ministry together, not just for pastors, but for folks who are faithful to the church, I think we've heard the reason. It's more than worth it, and it's a celebration. It's probably just a rumor to you, but every church is not always friendly to itself and friendly to its leaders. And I would celebrate with you the mighty testimony that we've heard that this is a pastor-friendly, people-friendly, Christ-honoring church, and that's a magnificent, wonderful statement. I'd like to conclude, if I might, with a little story. People seem to remember stories, whether it's foot or whatever, than just words. It's a story that took place at a time when Theodore Roosevelt had some time before finished his presidency, but he was an active man. And he was going to Africa quite regularly and other places to do hunting. And on this particular occasion, he was returning from one of those hunting trips. And he was coming to the boat that was going to sail back to the United States. And the band was playing and the red carpet was out and people were celebrating. And it was coincidental that a servant of the kingdom, a missionary, was also leaving Africa at the exact same time. Well, President Mrs. Roosevelt and all the entourage were ushered into the finest accommodations, and the missionary, who had buried his wife just 3 months before in the African soil and lost half of his children there as well, slipped into the least expensive, least influential, lowest class available on the ship, and they sailed to New York. Same thing happened again when they landed. The band was there, the celebration to welcome back President Roosevelt, and all the celebration that went on. The missionary sort of slipped off to the side, went to the lowest cost accommodations in town as he would wait for the morning train to go out somewhere to the Midwest to a very modest retirement place. And as he was saying his prayers that night, he was still hearing some of the celebration from the musicians that were welcoming the president. He made the acknowledgement that Teddy Roosevelt was the President of the United States, and a famous man and well-known and certainly worthy of accolades and affirmation and all the things that he should have received. He said, "Dear God, I gave my whole life to the service of the kingdom, and I'm an old man now. And I've lost family, and some of them have struggled because of my choices and your leading. What about me?" And in the moment of silence, he heard these words, "But my servant, you aren't home yet." You know, you folks here in Reed's Corners have made possible a sense of what home will look like for your partner servants. And I celebrate that so many could be here and some of their family. And I honor you for the way that you honor those who have been a part of the family life here. Might we pray together? Gracious God, for the gift of these lives and their witness, for the leadership offered for several years or many years, for your servant who you have called to this moment as well to be partner and leader with these people to serve the kingdom for purpose. We thank you, O God, for the majesty of your Spirit's leading, and ask your richest blessing upon this congregation that is located here and all those that have dispersed from here in their preparation, sharing and resharing of gifts that make possible a blessing to others round about. And we ask that your kingdom may increase and our joy as well. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Linda, please don't let anyone out that door. We have to go downstairs.
Could you please join us in singing Angels We Have Heard on High? And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. And all they that heard it wondered at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them. Could you please join us in O Come All Ye Faithful?
Amen.
anyone that wants to